So I've been living in Australia for about 2.5 years now, and it's fair to say that during my time here, there is definitely a lot of habits that I have picked up during my time here, just from being surrounded by other Australians and also just living that Australian lifestyle. There is actually some habits which I cannot believe I've actually picked up after 2.5 years. And we're gonna go into that in today's video. Before we get into it though, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, let's get into it. Make sure you stay tuned for the last one because I cannot believe that I have picked this particular habit up. So point number one is getting defensive about certain cities in Australia and feeling very passionate about which one is my favourite. Now this is something that I have mentioned that Aussies do quite a lot, and I've taken the piss a little bit out of Aussies because they do get very defensive about their country, very competitive about which city is the best. And honestly, I found it a bit strange when I first got here, like how offended and passionate they get. However, after travelling a lot of Australia, I actually find myself now, when speaking to people, getting quite passionate about certain places in Australia, especially places like Perth, which is like my favourite city in Australia. When people chat about Perth and they say that it's not as good as Sydney and Melbourne and stuff, I'm like, nah, I actually find myself getting quite defensive now. There's a lot to love about Australian cities, and I think I can see why Aussies definitely do get defensive about places and are so passionate about their favourite places in Australia, because having travelled all over Australia, I've actually found myself quite opinionated about certain places. It's definitely an Australian habit that I've picked up since being here. I do find myself in debates quite a lot about certain places in Australia. Point number two, a very obvious one, but it is the early morning coffee culture. Now, I feel like I've become such an early bird moving to Australia. Back in the UK, I feel like I'd lie in bed until like 10, 11 a.m. Now in Australia, obviously getting a bit older, but I feel like the early morning culture in Australia is massive. I find myself going for coffees all the time, getting out early, even going for like runs. I've never been a runner in my life, but my girlfriend runs and I've actually started to enjoy it, going for like runs early in the morning, going for coffee, going for breakfast, even going down the beach early in the morning if we're close to the beach. That early morning culture is definitely an Australian habit that I've picked up since being here, because in the UK, I was not a morning person at all. Now, I actually kind of prefer the morning sometimes to the evenings, particularly with the early morning culture being so big and the nightlife not being as good as the UK. I've definitely picked up the early morning coffee exercise culture, and to be honest, I do like it. Point number three is certain Aussie slang, and in particular shortening words, and also just using certain phrases around Aussies that I would not have said at all when I first moved here. I think a lot of it is because when I first moved, certain British slang that I would use, Aussies would not understand at all. So I found myself using certain Aussie phrases because they understand it, right? Things like shortening words like servo. In the UK, it's like a service station or a gas station or a petrol station. In Australia, they call it a servo. That's just one example of something they say very short, but they understand. I've caught myself saying that a few times. As well as this, in the UK, people will say, "Are you all right?" as a greeting. That basically means hello in the UK. Australians do not understand this at all. So I found myself saying, "How's it going?" all the time, because that's how Aussies greet each other. How you going? How's it going? That's what they say, and I found myself saying that way more. I don't go all out with the Aussie slang, obviously, because I'm not gonna copy it. I'm still English at the end of the day. Certain greetings and certain words I find myself saying around Aussies because they don't understand English slang, so my vocabulary has adapted a little bit to Australian, which I definitely didn't expect to happen, but 2.5 years in, here we are. Point number four is talking about the weather constantly. Now, I feel like this is a very Australian thing. I feel like you turn up to work, everyone's like, "Oh, it's a nice day today, isn't it? Oh, it's a bit wet out there." Do you know what I mean? Aussies just constantly commenting on the weather and also being very obsessed with the weather. I find myself constantly checking the weather now I live in Australia, if it's gonna be hot next week. And I find myself being very interested and a bit obsessed with what the weather's doing in Australia. I mean, obviously the weather being amazing here definitely gives you something to be excited about. Point number five is constantly eating meat pies and sausage rolls from like service stations. This is a massive thing in Australia. It's not really such a big thing in the UK, but eating meat pies is like such a big thing. In the UK you have like a pie, but you'll have it as like a dinner. You'll have like pie and mash. In Australia, a meat pie is like a snack you just get from like the shop or a bakery or a service station. Like meat pies are everywhere and they are so nice, and I literally eat so many meat pies. This is definitely an Aussie habit I've picked up. You fancy something small, you're a bit hungry, just go down and get a meat pie. That is the most Aussie thing ever, but I love it. Point number 6 is just going to the beach on my own. I feel like in the UK, I didn't really do much on my own at all. I mean, obviously I had friends and family around me, but moving to Australia, I do so much more by myself. That is natural, having moved and not knowing anyone here, but I feel like it's definitely an Aussie habit to just go down the beach on your own in the morning, in the evening, and just lie on the beach. Have a whole beach day by yourself. And that is 100% a habit that I've picked up because I'm here with my girlfriend at the moment, but when she's working, I'm quite happy just going down the beach myself, and I do enjoy it. And I feel like that's a very Aussie thing to do just before work or in the afternoon, even if you're on your own. Just go down the beach. In the UK, I don't know, I never really did anything on my own. And point number 7, I cannot believe I've picked up this habit, and that is bare feet. How have I picked this one up? I don't do it as extreme as Australians. I always go into Australians for going bare feet in the shops, even in restaurants. Like, that is too far. I don't go into shops and restaurants bare feet. However, around the beach and even just walking around like the park, honestly try it. Go bare feet and just walk around. I don't know what it is, it's so relaxing, like walking around bare feet. And whilst I definitely don't do it out and about in the shops and restaurants, if I'm at the beach or I'm near the beach or in the park, honestly, I quite like walking around bare feet, and it's something which it's definitely the weather here which allows that. You would not do that in the UK because you'd get frostbite on your feet. I found myself doing it, and this is the one Aussie habit which I've criticised so much because in the shops and restaurants it is a bit weird, but I actually find myself doing it sometimes when I'm outside. It's kind of acceptable when you're in nature. So they are 7 Australian habits that I have picked up since being in Australia. They definitely took a bit of time to happen because I've obviously been here 2.5 years. I weren't doing these things when I moved here, but 2.5 years in, here I am, and I have picked up some Aussie habits. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on this one, and I'll see you in the next video.